So our guest today, Todd McFarlane, and I bet you a lot of people, he's probably been asked this question a million times, where people think he's Seth MacFarlane too, that are outside of the, hey, Family Guy. Oh, that's not me. That's not me. And I've been working on my Todd McFarlane impression, but he's known for Spawn, which is his original creation. He went and created Image Comics, that is his own version of, almost a semi-private version of Marvel and DC. It's his own thing. But I don't know what just like Harlan Coben, I don't know what our audience will know about him. That's what a lot of this is going to be, is some general questions up top. And just, Scott asked me how I met him. I go, no, that's part of the podcast. I want people to hear that because it is just so cool how that came about. But we have Stephen Maurer, little Stevie Maurer, and John Menti waiting in the wings for the end of the show, because we don't have Salehi with us this week. He's graduating as we record this. So they're going to get into the nerd versions of the questions that we might ask throughout the show. So I wanted to see what you guys even knew about Todd McFarlane.
Is Salehi going to be done now? Because I've been waiting for that. Is he done?
Well, he's
graduating.
Graduating from school. He's going to be done with that, but he's going to now be always. You're going to go to school, and he's going to be on the podcast.
That's what I was afraid of. Okay,
technically, this podcast, we're all unpaid interns. So,
well, Frank, I'm an in-debt intern on this thing.
You're going the wrong way. I mean, this is not.
HHM isn't paying the bills, man.
Now, going to school, you say I would go to school. Have you been teaching your kids as part of the pandemic? Because that is part of the deal. We are homeschool teachers now.
They're already past me. Joey's in calculus. He's a 15-year-old in calculus. So it's just beyond.
Do you just work on impressions with Juliet all day? Is that
that's
like
good. We're getting into it. She's getting better. She's kind of
a smart thing.
So good.
She's kind of a mini blonde Melissa Villaseñor.
So I figured out who she is, Frank. She is your Tim Conway, and you are Harvey Korman.
Yeah, I become Harvey Korman with her.
Yeah.
Anytime I come up with a line too, I give it to her. So and I didn't come up with the last ones when she did the Trump, that was her lines, because I said Trump does this with his hands, and she goes, like Barbie. I go, yeah, and then she goes, Barbie lives in the dream house and I live in the White House. I'm like, you wrote that joke like that? Holy crap.
Yeah, the only difference is the Harvey to Tim height ratio will change.
Well, no, it's actually close. I tower over her. That's the one person, is Juliet. So what do you guys know about Todd? What do you guys know about Todd McFarlane?
I've had him on my radio show. It's been a long time, but about, my old show, the one I did before this in 21 years ago, Todd came in and did a little deal. And it was because he's in Phoenix, he was buying Mark McGwire's baseball, the home runs that he purchased, Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire's baseballs. And he bought that home run 70 that McGwire had for $3 million, which is amazing because he also owns Barry Bonds' 73rd home run, and that he bought for $300,000 because the baseball market fell apart thanks to McGwire and Sosa. And there's an interesting story behind that, and we can get into it with him on how much money he spent on the baseball and how much money he spent on Spawn.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a great story. He tells a great story. But I've known of Todd's been in Phoenix for years, and had a store here up by the hockey arena for a while. And he's been kind of a local underground nerd legend who became super not nerd legend, and has story after story. He's a sports fanatic. I mean, I think when he came on our show, he was here to promote something, and we ended up talking about baseball for an hour. He just
Did you know?
Baseball encyclopedia.
Yeah, I'm worried about Scott asking a question that is a baseball encyclopedia.
I know.
Did you know his company designed a logo for KUPD?
They did?
That's what his PR lady told me, Carmen.
Could be.
She said, and I said, would he remember that? She's like, probably not. I'm like, but you can ask
How
him
long ago? Because he used to do
12 years ago.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, do know this. It was I think it was a poster for one of our concerts, actually, and he designed the logo. I kind of vaguely remember that. I don't know which one it was, but I do remember talking to McFarlane did.
So I also had, I told you I have Menti and Maurer waiting in the wings to do some nerd talk at the end, and ask questions that we might not be privy to understanding because we're not at that level. But I said I had a great idea that was going to be for me and you, John, that we would. After social distancing, we'd still have social distancing, but we could get out of the house a little bit more. I wanted to do a commercial with some of his new toys, playing with his toys as two adult nerds. And then I'm like, with an 80s style commercial. And then they, luckily, because I was going to bring it up to him, the Menti and Maurer told me, or actually Maurer said, well, Kevin Smith just did that. And I was like, oh, you're kidding. I'm like, how long ago? He's like, a month ago. I'm like, that sucks.
Kevin Smith has screwed me twice in 2020, and I hasten to say that he might be the worst part of this year for me.
For people who don't know, you had him on the show and you were talking He-Man, right?
Yeah, the day before we were talking He-Man, and I volunteered to do all the He-Man voices for him for free because he was redoing Masters of the Universe, and he goes, you know what? Send me a tape. Well, I tried to get in contact with him, and he goes, I'm not going to do the hiring for the voices for a long time. So, and I'm like, and I've talked to Kevin a bunch. I'm like, you got it. And then the day I start doing the tape, you see the announcement of who's in there. And I just was like, why did you even lead me on? These are humongous names in cartoon and movie voiceover history. So and he didn't respond. So Kevin Smith and I are on the opposite.
You're on the outs, but do a little Man at Arms, because Man at Arms makes me laugh so much.
Man at Arms is just, what's his name? I can't even think of his name. Sam Donaldson. Which I don't even know if I can do it, because at the end of the show, every time I hit the button to say goodbye at the end of the show, it goes, until next time, everybody, goodbye. The Man at Arms you forgot was so nerdy. It's like, all right, everyone, we have to listen to He-Man right now. But as we get back, I'm like, holy cow, he's just a news broadcaster. It's great.
I didn't put together the Sam Donaldson thing.
It's Sam Donaldson. It's the same thing. Well, that's
Mr.
exactly
President.
what I told you, He-Man, and that's when you don't listen why bad things happen.
Mr. President, Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. President, Mr. President. Yeah, he's the same. So it's just an exaggerated version. You play with it based on the old ones, and I'd have gotten that in a heartbeat. And free, you can't beat that price. But Kevin Smith evidently didn't think I was serious, and I lost the job. I never had
jobs. Period.
Yeah, multiple jobs. I never had them, and I'm collecting unemployment for it because I feel like I was that close.
I got a text from Salehi. He wants to know who Sam Donaldson is. Can you help me out with it?
I was honestly thinking, now it's ingrained in my head that that's what Salehi does. So whenever there's an older reference,
that'll make him a better student just in time for graduation, is to take notes when you don't understand. So we helped him even after he was all done. Now in life, he'll just write down things he doesn't know, which is a good thing.
We should have him go to like a senior citizen's home and sit down after the coronavirus and have him look things up. And see if he knew anything. Not now. No, let's not.
No. Let's not send the youth into the old people homes quite yet. There may be a touch of a problem, Scott. I don't know if you've opened a paper here in the last 20 years.
Yeah. Is there what morning show in America, Holmberg, do you think is doing that gag right now? Who's sending
Jesus.
I don't know, but we have Todd. So you guys ready for Todd?
Do it. There's got to be one. They'll be fired soon.
Yeah, sure.
Todd.
He's falling down. Oh, God. He's okay.
He's connecting to audio. He's getting ready.
Big shot. What's up?
How are you?
I'm killing it.
Yeah. Are you at home probably 5 blocks away from me?
I am at home.
Awesome. So I just want to start out with, this is how I met Todd McFarlane. So I went to a Comic-Con, Ace Comic-Con in Phoenix, and he lives here. I didn't even realize he lived here. I knew something, some about Todd, but I was just getting into a lot more comic book stuff with Juliet, and she was getting into the MCU, and we were there to see some of the movie stars and stuff like that. Well, they had me do a little thing, and I bombed terribly because I was in front of Taron Egerton's audience, and I'm trying to do Morgan Freeman. That's when Frank realized nobody in this audience cared about a chubby guy. They wanted to see Taron Egerton. So we're backstage, which was in the green room, and we were kind of just sitting around and trying not to bother too many people because it was 50-50 of whether I should have been there or not too. I was doing a little thing, it was one of these types of things, and this guy with just the most positive energy in the world walks up behind me and Juliet, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, this is unbelievable." And he starts drawing, starts talking about Venom and talking about the creation of Venom. And he's drawing, and I'm like, he's drawing Venom. And then he starts to tell the story of creating Venom. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is Todd McFarlane. And Juliet's kind of not exactly sure what's going on at that point. And I go, pay attention, because this is not a normal thing. This is pretty awesome. Yeah. And still to this day, we have, he was on the back. It was on the back of the rundown for the Ace Comic-Con where all the performers are going to come. This is unbelievable. I mean, it's just so cool. And I don't know if you know this, and I've never even asked you this, Todd. My wife was recording it, and she probably wasn't supposed to be recording anything. And I was going to put it out as a post for this interview as part of the promotion for it. And I'll ask you that off camera. So if you say no, I can pretend like I lost it. But can you tell that? I know you've told it a bunch, but just for these guys, even the story of creating Venom is just so, because you're a young guy at that point.
Yeah. So I'm working at Marvel at this point. My career is starting to blossom. I'm getting fast enough that I can now do 2 books in a month, right? Most artists can only do 1 book in a month. I can do 2. I'm starting to get fast enough. So I'm doing the Hulk, and I'm looking for another book. And at this point, what they called the Spider-Man office was in disarray. Nobody really wanted to do the books for whatever reason. I never found out why. And there's 3 Spider-Man books that came out at that point: Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, and Peter Parker. So depending on what week you walk, you get it. The character who was their icon from Marvel Comics was floundering. He wasn't even really about the top 20. And so everybody was trying to figure out, how do we get the Spider-Man up the ranks. So my artistic sort of talent started to grab a little bit of attention, especially with what I was doing. And then I to the office and they go, "Hey, Todd, well, the editor says, I want you to do Spidey." And I looked at Spider-Man and I went, yeah. And he goes, I'm going to hire you right now. You can do Spider-Man. Except one thing. He was in a black costume. Now again, let me just say, if a normal employee, when the boss says, we're going to give you the big icon character, you usually say, yes, sir. And you walk away with a smile. But that little teenage rebellion in me, I just want, hey, I'll make you a deal. I'll come draw Spider-Man under one condition. We get rid of that black costume. And they went, that's a problem. The editor-in-chief likes it. And it had something to do with the black costume. So I said, easy, because I'm not Spider-Man unless he's red and blue, because I grew up in red. I'm not doing him in black. It's like doing Superman in polka dots. So I said, hey, how about this? I'll go create a new look. The costume off Peter Parker. We'll put it on this other guy. We'll have a new villain, and we'll have a win-win. We'll still have the black costume, and I get to draw Peter Parker in the red and blue costume. They thought about it for a bit, and they went, all right, that seems fair. Can you wait a couple issues? I had jumped on Amazing Spider-Man issue 298. They wanted to do this story in issue 300. So if you look in the catalogs of prices of books, Amazing Spider-Man 300, it's kind of expensive. Beginning of my career, it's an anniversary book, but more importantly, it's the origin of Venom. Now, to me, I don't consider that book the origin of Venom. I consider it the book so I can get that goddamn black costume off Peter Parker so I can use the red and blue. He was a throwaway, Frank, everybody. It was a happy $1 billion accident eventually for Sony in their movie, that it was just, if I was a normal employee, I would have said yes. I probably would have drawn it in the black costume for 3 years. till Marvel got bored of it, and then they would have put him back in the red and blue eventually, and there wouldn't be this character. So I wish I could say it was all planned. It was just dumb luck, complete dumb luck.
Do you still have that same type of what's the word I'm looking for?
Yes.
Non-conformity. I mean, it's like yeah, because you have to do as you get older, you know, you have to conform a little bit. You're in a business, you're a businessman, but you go outside the box, you do different things, you try different things, and that's still you. I mean, I don't know how much our audience at the beginning here knows about. I mean, you drew Spider-Man differently. You changed things. The webbing became more intricate. The spaghetti webbing. Do you guys know what that is? Where he really did a lot with the web instead of a single web.
So let me see if I can tell you. Like, I came on Spider-Man, and essentially nobody had updated the look of it for about 25, 30 years, right? I came on trying to keep my career intact. I went, if I draw Spider-Man the same way everybody else does, it's not good for me. I'm going to get lost. So the piece of the puzzle and again, you can ask Juliet, the piece of the puzzle I don't think people give enough credit for a lot of jobs, but you know, in comic book creating for sure, is that we sit in a room for 12 hours a day by ourselves. That's it. That's what we do, Frank. And it can be pretty lonely. So if you're not entertaining yourself, it becomes drudgery, and it's work. It's work. So what you want to do in your best day is sit in front of the table and do cool stuff. So every character I ever drawn in my life, I said, man, what would be cool? Oh, this would be cool. So for Spider-Man, here's the shift that I did that to me, that made the big deal, that blew my career up and got me in trouble with Marvel executives. They were doing Spider-Man, emphasis on the man. And when I came, I go, no, I want to do Spider-Man. I didn't really care about Peter Parker. So as soon as he put the costume on, I went, yeah, now he's just a big bug. It's cool. So again, I made the eyes way bigger. I tripled the webbing on his outfit. I made his costume a little darker. I put the webs back underneath his armpits. And then the big one you were alluding to was I reinvented the webbings. So that instead of it being like one, like, vine, to me, he used to move like, to me, what Tarzan did, swinging from vine to vine. And so I wanted to do something that was a little more three-dimensional, but even more importantly, I wanted to draw and create something that I could shoot towards camera, like my hand right now. And it would actually look like something cool. The way they had designed it, which was 3 lines and a bunch of X's, you couldn't do it. Anyways, I got in trouble the whole time, but the whole time I was getting in trouble, the sales were going up, right? And every time I'd go into New York, they'd wag a finger and they'd go, Todd, he's our icon. You can't do this. And I'm like, yes, sir. Let me also tell any young people here, anytime your mom says to do something or your boss, always say yes, even if you're never going to do it. Always say yes. It's way easier. So I just would say yes. And then I'd leave. I keep doing it. Sometimes I do it even more just because I knew it would be about another 90, 120 days before they actually looked again. And then by the time they looked, sales were up a little bit higher. But the one time you know, I just invented the webs. We didn't have a name for it, but the editor-in-chief was an Italian guy. And I was in the office and he got so mad that day. He got so mad at me. He was like, you got to stop it with the eyes. They look like big cannolis and they look like, and then you got to stop doing the webs. It looks like fucking bolognese. And God damn it, you got to stop with the spaghetti webbings. And I always remember every time I left his office, I was always hungry. In hindsight, I now remember why. But it was, when he said spaghetti webbing to me, all I remember wasn't stop doing it because he was so red in the face. It was, wow, I got a name for it now. And from there on, it was called, which was apropos, because it's what it looks like. It was called spaghetti webbing. And I just kept doing it. And eventually, they sort of backed off because the book went to #1. We took it from number 20 to #1. And then they gave me my own book. I said I was going to leave Spider-Man, going to go write. I want to write. They said, Todd, hey, come on, man. We want you to stay on Spider-Man. So they invented a new book for me. It set a record that still stands today for sales, corporate, by a single individual. Spawn later that I own that record. I own both the corporate, non-corporate record for sales. But even on that book that was #1, they eventually came back and said, stop it. And that's where they wore me out, Frank. They just said, stop. All that stuff that you're doing, basically you're selling more books than any other employee that we have. You got to stop doing that thing that's so successful. Like, stop hitting home runs, Todd. We need you to hit some doubles, maybe even the odd single. It was mind-numbing to me. I was just a little Canadian kid. I didn't understand the ways of you Americans sometimes. So,
but that's just plain backwards thinking by the, like, old school thinking by them. They just don't want to budge. So they're, even though they have, it's working, and they tell you stop. Just it might not have been that way if it was any other character, but yet you have to understand who Spider-Man was. He was like, this is a public company, right? He was on their checks. He was on their stock reports. He was on their, everything that they had like a little icon as Spider-Man. And I was like, I was messing with their icon, right? It's like changing the horse, I guess, for Ford to them. I didn't look at that like, who cares what the checks look like? That wasn't my job. My job was to sell as many comic books for you as possible. So
that's what I'm doing.
What would you do with Mickey Mouse?
What would I do with Mickey Mouse?
Yeah, would you change if you're getting in trouble with Spider-Man? What would you do to Mickey Mouse?
Yeah, I'd figure out something. Frank, look at any person that has any kind of career. You don't want to get lost. You don't want to get lost. And I go up against, at that point in my career, I'm up against 1,000 different creators. I had to do something. I had to do something that would, grab a little bit of attention. And more importantly, it wasn't even that. It was just because it was just cool stuff. I just want to do cool stuff with Spider-Man. And luckily, the readers wanted the same cool stuff, that they were ready for a change after 30 years. So here's the thing. If the other people had been upgrading the look of the character and been messing around with the character every 5-6 years since the creation of it, when Stan Lee started it, then by the time I got there, what I did wouldn't have been noticed. It's just that everybody was in this time warp, and it had gone into like this status, and it looked like 1960s comics. So I'm in 1990s, I bring it up to date, and it was like a 25-year jump, and everybody's like, oh my God, you see what's happening over there? It shouldn't have happened, right? If they were doing their job, I should have just been another 3-year leap. No,
I'm literally asking, what would you do to Mickey Mouse? Would you give him some better teeth?
Spaghetti webbing?
No, I think that his outfit's a little outdated. I think the shoes don't quite fit. I'd make him a little bit more of a dude. Like, what do you, I mean, come on, you can. Here's the thing about Mickey Mouse. He doesn't resonate as much with the new audience as some of the Pixar characters do, right? So you have to make them more relevant. That's all I was doing. Look at, when I was doing Spider-Man, he was married to this girl named Mary Jane. She was a supermodel in the book. She was a supermodel, and it looked like she got all her clothes from Kmart, and she never went to the salon, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, my wife's not a supermodel, and she dresses better than that. So so that was a big shock. Like, why are you making her so sexy? And anyways, they just wore me out. Eventually, they wore me out, and we started our own revolution someplace.
How old were you, Todd? How old were you when this was going on?
How old was I?
Yeah.
That would have been, wow, that would have been about 1990, 91. So I'm about 30. So.
Okay. And then, as the years have gone by, how do you feel like you stay relevant to your audience? How do you how do you not become them? Or when you're overseeing other people putting stuff out?
Good question. As a matter of fact, we should pose this question to everybody younger than me, right? Why is the old man still relevant? It's ridiculous. I keep saying, why is Todd McFarlane still relevant? If you went to the 24-year-old Todd and you said, Todd, your competition's right over there. It's that 32-year-old dude. Shoot, that was an old man to me. I would have knocked that guy off. Like, I played Pac-10 baseball, so I'm competitive by nature. So to me, I don't understand why they've let me still have the career. And here's part of it. I got 301 issues. I created this new character, Spawn. I got 301 issues. We just got a Guinness Book of World Records for the longest running creator book ever in the history of mankind. And it's hard to get some of them to do 10 issues. So I'm just going to beat them. I'm just going to beat them, not with skill. They're way faster. They're smarter. They have more talent than me. A lot of them just don't want to put in the work. So I just put in the work. So.
I have pure chaos breaking out at my house right now. Just a quick update. A bird has flown directly into the window next to me and the dogs have lost their mind. So I may have to lose it for a second. It's calmed down now, but that was a great story. And in the middle of it, I was nearly killed by a bird out of a window within a foot of me. So I'm sitting in my own feces right now. I'm not going to lie during the clock. That scared me to death.
But you're like my wife in a horror movie. It's like there's going to be jump scares in every interview. There's at least one jump scare in every interview. This is it. So
that was it.
You have to get used to it.
I wanted to ask you, Todd, you went back to like when you said that the Spider-Man stuff and like how much of an icon it was. How do they test for that? Because I know in radio, you're frustrated constantly by doing something creative and new, and then they test what's always worked and say, oh, no, people are comfortable with this. When you test comfort, it's going to come back 90%. So how do they test something like Spider-Man versus a new Spider-Man, even though it's succeeding? Do they test the people who like it or the people who have no idea what it is? And then they just inevitably go back to familiar.
Comic books are way more simplistic than that. They put out a book and they look at the sales and then they look at the sales next to another book or to the other books. So when they gave me a Spider-Man book, because they said I wanted to write, and it set a record, then all of a sudden they're going, oh, this is the most popular of the 4 Spider-Man books. And, oh, by the way, it's selling more than any other character we have at the company. Cool, right? So to them, it's very easy. They just put out a book and they sit back, and in 2 or 3 months, they get enough data over 3 months to see whether anybody likes it. Look at I talk to like business groups, and I talk to people, and my wife teaches at ASU. She's a professor. And I always warn the kids that the thing that you're going to run into, the biggest enemy you're going to run into in your life, from my perspective, is status quo, people protecting status quo. It's the easiest thing to do, right? Which is an odd human trait, because the only thing that's sort of, that we know, there's only 2 truisms in life if we look at the dawn of man to today. 1, we're all going to die, so just check that box. And 2, change. That's the only thing. Like when you look at all those books, we've been constantly changing. So every time somebody tries to change and somebody tries to protect that, to me, it's going counter to the history of man. But I understand it. They have millions, sometimes billions of dollars at risk. And so they get conservative trying to protect those brands. And what happens is innovation starts to sort of contract. And then some other person who comes along, right? Ask IBM about this kid in the garage named Steve Jobs, right? He just sort of sits there and says, hey, I've got this idea. They'll call you a rebel, quit rocking the boat. Come on, why do you got to do this? Why don't you just get along to go along? All the things are going to say, because they don't have the warrior spirit in them. And then every now and then there's a few people that say no. Most of us get killed along the way because we're going against giants. But every now and then you get somebody who just has the idea and they succeed, and it becomes not only so successful, it becomes the next status quo, right? Now Apple isn't the innovative, it's the new status quo, and somebody's going to come along and show them how to do it one day. So,
do you think, because you have multiple businesses with the toys, that those are all licensed characters, right? So I was listening to some.
I mean, I started it with all my characters.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say all. A lot of licensed characters, and I was listening to some interviews and you talking about some of those and how you try to put the little McFarlane spin, but you got to kind of push them to little bits at a time. But what I started thinking about here is you're talking, it's almost like, with the books themselves, you get to be more creative and do exactly what you want. And then you get the business side from the toys sometimes. So you get a little bit of both worlds. It's almost like when we do stand up or whatever, like John does on the, he does on the radio or whatever, we do stand up, or I'll just say me, when I do stand up comedy, I get to do one thing. When I go and do television, they're telling me to do certain things. So whenever somebody would ask me, what do you like better? I'm like, well, they're two different things. And because I get to do them both at the same time, I love both of them. If I only had, people always ask that question, would you do this or that? And I've even been a person who's done that. I did that to Dennis Miller a few weeks ago. Would you rather do this or this? And he yelled at me, hey, Frankie, what are you thinking here? You wouldn't do either, Chachi. You know, so that element I think lets you grow. And by the way, I've been working on my Todd McFarlane. Oh my gosh, Todd! That's all I got. So, oh my gosh.
No. Hey, I'll give it to you. It's Rocky Balboa meets Homer Simpson with an indigenous mumble. Oh, that's how it works.
Oh my gosh, Todd! That's all I can do. Oh my gosh, Todd. And that's turned into Kuiper. Todd.
Eventually you get there. Look at what they're asking you when you're doing more than one thing to say, hey, pick your favorite. And your answer is exactly right. They have different rules. So it's like somebody saying, do you like sports? Of course I like sports. But you're asking me, you know, which one do I like better, baseball or football? They have different rules, right? So I like them both for different reasons because I'm not playing the exact same game. So yes, I started my toy company for the same reason because I couldn't get any satisfaction from the Fortune 500 companies. And I just went, fine, I'll go do it myself. How hard can it be to put plastic in a shape, right? I've been doing it since I was a kid. My mom used to buy little Jello molds and I used to pour the Jello in and then all of a sudden you'd have a little T-Rex and eat it cherry. It was about the same thing, a little complicated, more complicated than that. But, so I started my toy company just to make it. And what I was going up against was when the big companies came, I just said, I want two things. I'd like to make a non-traditional toy and sell it in non-traditional places. But they can't move off their game plan because like I said, they're billion-dollar empires. If I had a billion-dollar empire, I'd probably be doing the exact same thing they're doing. It's just that because they can't move that fast, then I just go, well, I'll go fill the gap. I'll fill the gap. You guys aren't filling the gap of stuff that appeals to kids that are over the age of 14 and just make them cooler, right? And I found out the reason they weren't making them cooler and better was because, again, it was just a profit thing that if they didn't put more paint hits on their toys, that would be an extra nickel times 1 million units. That's real money to them. Or I'm a small company. I'm not public, I'm private. So I reverse engineer, make it as good as you can, price it second, right? And show the value and then people will come. And I've been able to compete against the public Fortune 500 companies selling at Walmart, Target, Toys R Us, I sell there. I'm right next to them. And people go, Todd, you think you're ever gonna be able to beat those big guys? It's the wrong answer. The answer is no. The question isn't, can I slay the giant? The question is, why can't the giant slay me? Why do I even have any space in Walmart next to them? They've got more money, more people, they got more power, they got more advertising, they got more production, they've got more of everything, and they still can't squeeze me out. And there's only one reason why. They can't move fast enough to kill me. Ooh, it's true. They're so slow. Like I'm a mosquito. I'm right here. And they go, oh. And by the time they do that, I've went around their head 3 times, and I'm now on this side of their head. They can never catch you. They can never move fast enough. So I can go into a Walmart meeting. We can have a conversation on Monday. I give them the answer. They go, Todd, can you do this? By Tuesday, I give them an answer. And if the answer is yes, by Wednesday, I'm already starting to design and get into the production of it at the beginning of it. The big companies will take 3 weeks to have a board meeting that they can even contemplate answering the first question. I'm already 3 weeks down the road on it. So what are you talking about? Speed is good, not only in sports, speed's good in business too. Be small and shifty.
You bring up the warrior spirit, you bring up sports. That's been kind of a common theme the last month on our podcast. We had Ed Milet, who played college baseball. We had Harlan Coben, who played college basketball. Harlan's got 75 million books out there. And of course, you played baseball too, and it seemed like that was always number one, almost like your focus. You kept trying. I'm reading the story. It's like, you know, I screw up my what was your leg, your ankle? What?
Yeah.
In college?
Look at. So let's see if we can put in context. I got into comic books because I sent out 700 samples over 3 years, and I got over 300 rejections. I still got the bag. I still have the bag. And people will say, well, Todd, what kept you going? The same thing that kept me going when I was 0 for 3 in a ball game. And the fourth time I stepped up to the plate, I still thought I was better than that pitcher. Now again, intellectually, we know he's having the better day. But I never gave him the credit for that day until the game was over. Up until the last pitch, when I was 0 for 3, my attitude was, come on, dude, let me see you do it a fourth time. And if it was a close game and it was 4-4, it doesn't even matter that you got me out 3 times, because if I rip a single with the guy on second right now, we're in the lead. I don't care that you got me out 3 times. So, as an entrepreneur, let me just say, as an entrepreneur, there's never a moment where we think we're going to fail. It's our delusion. It's our delusion, right? The people who are not built for starting their own businesses are the ones that are ready from the very get-go, are looking like, well, Todd, no, I hear it, but what if it doesn't work? And they're already coming up with excuses. And so I found, as I've gotten older, there's a personality trait that has to go with it, right? And so and here's the thing that's bizarre about the personality. Because, I mean, if you guys saw me, I was a little skinny lefty, played center field. I shouldn't even been on the field. Is I can be in a room with 8 other artists, and they're all way better than me, twice as good as me. And somebody walks in, they go, I need to hire somebody for a job, and I get the job. And you know how I get the job? Simple. It's simple. Because when they said, who wants a job? I, like Donkey and Shrek, I go, oh, pick me. I'll do it. And the other 8 that are better than me didn't raise their hand. And so
love that.
Half the battle is just saying, I'll do it. Even if you don't know. Look at my first big giant break in toys was when the Toys R Us buyer came. He was the Pope at that point. And he came to my little 5x5 booth, first toy fair I was ever at. I didn't even have a prototype. And he comes there, and my big break wasn't that Toys R Us cared who I was. He had a 20-year-old assistant that collected my comic books and said, boss, this is the guy I'm talking to you about. And my book was #1. So he asked me 2 questions. 1, can you deliver this by May? Yeah, I didn't know if I could. And 2, can you get to me at this price? Of course I can. I didn't know either one of those answers. The answer is always yes. And then he leaves, and then I turn and I go, shit, can we do either one of those? And we did. And then the guy says, okay, if you do that, I'll put you store-wide at Toys R Us. Now, here's why that's big. Because they were the biggest toy guys. And then all of a sudden, the other guys that were saying no to you, I now get to walk into Walmart, and I get to say, Mr. Walmart buyer, I just wanted to let you know, because I'm like a courteous Canadian, that your #1 competitor, Toys R Us, has just gone store-wide with this thing that I've got. Now, they don't care what it is. It's called Spam or Prawn or Spawn. They didn't care what it was called. They just knew that Toys R Us was going store-wide, and they couldn't be left in the dark. And so they go, sign me up. And then it tumbles. Then I go to Walmart, to Target. Then I go to Kmart. Next thing you know, I'm across this country. I haven't even got a prototype yet. And I'm already in all the big stores. Here we go. So sometimes you need a dumb luck. And my dumb luck was a 20-year-old assistant that was a comic book collector, right? That you just, God bless that kid. I wish I remember his name. So.
It's funny you say that, because I remember a story you told on my show years ago about, because I was, as a big baseball fan, you and I started to go off on baseball a little. It was a while ago, but it was right after you had kind of gotten into the McGuire Bonds. You got the baseball, Sosa, all those. And we had talked, and you said, I spent $3 million on the McGuire ball or thereabouts, whatever it was.
Right. Yep.
And then you said something kind of flippant about, well, I spent $3 million to brand Spawn and didn't get a sniff. But I spent $3 million on this baseball, and all of a sudden Spawn started getting attention.
Well, more importantly, there's a couple of truisms. One of them is stick to what you know. I know sports, right? So I was in the toy business. I wanted to do sports, And some of the licenses were starting to fall apart, the company that was doing the starting lineup. And of course, they weren't letting me in. I was like a little boy. None of the big sports guys are going to let me in. And then I go, well, there's only one way to get into the poker game. You're going to have to ante up. And the ante to me was to show them that I could grab a headline and let them then take that and multiply it. So here's how it goes. They see a headline. Somebody pays $3 million on a baseball. They make a couple easy projections. One, kid must be loaded. It wasn't true. I spent every penny I had and had to borrow some to get those balls. Number two, he must be successful because he's so loaded. Wasn't necessarily true, but let him make that decision. And then they go, hey, you know what? He's knocking on the door. Bring him in, right? So very quickly, I ended up getting the NFL, the NBA, NHL, and basketball. I got all four. And MLB, I got all four sports, made my ante back multiple times over. It's just that if I had spent that same $3 million on a Super Bowl ad, nobody blinks an eye. If I spent $6 million manufacturing, nobody blinks an eye. But you spend it on a $5 baseball. It wasn't a baseball I bought. It was basically getting them to unlock the door. So that's it. The punk could come in. And I made all the money back. Call it advertising. Did you
feel that immediately? Did you feel like the headlines came right away and you're like, this worked? Or were you like, holy shit, for a couple minutes?
No, I knew we were going to get the headline. So now the question was, could I convert it into what it was that I had just spent it on, which was getting the sports. And so I had these, I spent a lot of time with lawyers too, right? So that's a whole nother podcast we can go into. But I had this moment where I was sitting there and I was in one of the four major sports and they had 6 of their lawyers there because I had gone to the union. You have to get 2 licenses. You have to get a license from the league so you can use the colors and the logos and the uniform. And then you have to get another separate contract so you can use the player's likeness and their names. Those are 2. So what I did was somebody had dropped hockey. I went in to the union. I grabbed the union for both baseball and for hockey. I actually did one line of generic hockey and generic baseball in generic uniforms, although I had superstar names on them. And then the NHL at that point came and then they were going to sue me. And they're going, because I had Pavel Bure, whoever, in the generic uniform. And they were sitting there. I go, what are you talking about, guys? I'm in New York. And I go, I'm going to bring my toy. I'm going to give you all the reasons why mine is different. And they're going, we don't care. We're going to sue you and we're going to make you stop. And it was an easy conversation. And I don't even know why I have to have these conversations. And I go, okay, so let's just see what your options are today. Your options is number 1, you can sue me. And please do me a favor, because if you actually Google me, I actually like going to court. So you might as well just do this because I'll be your poster child. Now, here's what you're saying to the jury. You're saying that you own reddish. No, you don't. You own red. I'm doing like crimson. You think you own all red tones? You sell that to people. You think you own yellowish? You think you own, well, the stripe is 4 inches, mine's 5? You think you own kind of 4 inches? Shit, you better. And here's the thing, if we go to court and you win, what's the best you've got? You already think you own all of that. So your best day is status quo. But if you're wrong, even a little bit, not only do I get to do it, I'll make it my life's mission to make sure that the other 8 billion people on this planet know they can do it too. And you're going to have a lot of competition. Or here's the other option. I'm trying to give you $1 million guarantee. Let me use your logos. You know what? They went into the back room. They took the $1 million. Like, what are you talking about? Why are we even having this discussion, right? It's like, it's ridiculous. I'm trying to shove cash down your throat. Take the cash. Sometimes, like I said, you funny Americans sometimes, like as Canadians, we're not used to like your kabuki dances. I don't get it in Canada. If you say, hey, you want nothing or do you want something? We usually take the something, but I don't know. You guys just go, we'll sue you. You try to give us something, we'll sue you. So, okay.
Can I ask, Todd, do you treat your children like Americans since they grew up here? Or do you talk badly about them like you do us?
They are. I have to watch let me just say I have to watch myself. They are. I have 2 out of the 3 are Yankees, so I have to control myself a little bit so that I just go, yes, that's your heritage. Yeah, but I only play the dumb Canadian when it suits me, right? Otherwise, I have to sit there and lean over the board, and I can be as ruthless as anybody else. But I just sort of play dumb Canadian when it suits me. So it's good. If it concerns them.
Okay, and then a follow-up on you being a Canadian baseball player. How does that happen who's the greatest player from Calgary that grew up in Calgary, like major league player?
Right now, the young kid pitching for the Braves.
Soraka?
Yeah. Prior to that, I don't know. It might have been Gern Blanston or somebody.
Gern Blanston, sure. Gern Blanston. Do you sell a lot of the toys of Gern Blanston?
Yeah.
I have Gern figurine here if you guys want.
Yeah, do you?
Well, he made me a 5-foot version of it.
You guys just went on a tangent of a tangent. That was the strands and the spaghetti webbing, Chachi. That's what that was.
No, we lost some of the crowd. We lost some of the crowd right there.
So I want to know a little more about this.
Look at this one's completely easy. When I was younger, my dad moved us down to California. So in the formative years between like 5 and 13, I was in SoCal, NoCal, and I just learned all the sunshine sports. So by the time you go back, I moved back to Canada when I was 14, back to Calgary. You have 2 choices, and life gets really sort of black and white when you're 14, and they say, hey, Todd, here's your 2 choices again, sort of like those lawyers at the NHL. Here's what you can do. You can either play hockey, by the way, all the kids here have been playing since they were 6, and at best, maybe you can carry the puck bag, even if you won't play hard. Or we don't play baseball. You just came from California. You may actually be the best kid in the entire city. Which one of those sports do you want to focus on, right? So you just go, do I want to be a doofus or do I want to be an all-star? These are crystal clear decisions. So that was it.
I also think one of the most important words for you, although no is really big whenever you can say no to something, it's a big deal. But for you, it seems to be or, because you have that, that's how things are in your head, that you can do this or I can fix it for you.
Right.
And we can make
it. Right. I can draw Spider-Man the way you want, or I can sell 1 million copies a month. Right?
Like, you nailed it.
I've never thought of it that way, but
sometimes I'm looking, going, I keep thinking that Ashton Kutcher's coming out because I'm being punked sometimes on these options. Because I go, come on, there's a camera, because this is so obvious. This is a joke, right? What people want me to do. But look at it. Going up against Marvel and DC, which I do with our company now, and Hasbro and Mattel with the toys and play. So I play with the big boys. You play with the big boys, and here's the thing: when you play with the big boys, they got sharp elbows, right? Just like Gordie Howe, they got sharp elbows. Sometimes you have to be ready for it. So I've always told people, look, I try to be that nice Canadian kid that everybody wants, but here's my line in the sand, that I let you pick the tempo of how we're going to play. So you want to play in a courteous way, I'll be courteous. You want to play in a nice way, I'll play a nice way. But you want to start throwing elbows, then get ready for my elbow. I don't care if you're bigger than me. I don't care if you're tougher than me. I have no fear of the fight. So what's the worst that can happen? I fail. Cool. No big deal. To me, it's like cutting my hair. It'll grow back. I'll get up. I'll try and do it again. I have a test for people. Anybody listening, you think you're an entrepreneur, I'm going to ask you a simple question. This is going to get most of you out of have you ever been the first person on the dance floor at a bar? If the answer is no, you may not be cut out for it, because you give a shit about what other people think about you. When I go to a bar to dance with my sweetheart, I don't care about any of the strangers in that room at that moment. I don't care if none of them want to dance that day, because my goal is to dance with my sweetheart. And if they don't want to, if they all want to dance, it has no bearing on whether I'm going to dance with my wife. And if they don't want to dance, it has no bearing. I don't care about what people think about me, right? This is the piece that sort of stops some people in their tracks. I'm like, wow, like, but this is it. It gets you in trouble. And there's a fine line between being sort of like, oh my God, Todd, you're tenacious and just being a jerk, or being delusional and being steadfast. There's a lot of different words. I've been called all of them. I'll take them all. I don't care. Like, as long as they let me do my next job, that's all I care. And the only reason I need success, just like all of you good gentlemen, is so they'll give us a job so we can do it tomorrow. Because if you don't have success, they don't give you those options quite as much. So I have to figure out ways to succeed so they'll let me do art till I die. And
I have a big or for you. You can create a specialty figure, take a bunch of risk, or you can try crowdfunding and do a Kickstarter campaign. Right? That's what that came down to, right? Like so you'd start a Kickstarter, and I just found out about this recently. We have two guys in the wings that are super nerds that are going to ask you all the nerdier questions at the end that we didn't hit on. John Menti and little Stevie Maurer.
Okay.
You know, this is one of the things I was looking over some of the stuff, and I knew a little bit about this, but you did a Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, my first one. Yeah.
You've never done it before, and a lot of people ask you questions why, and you're like, so I can get data, which was a brilliant, amazing answer, because I didn't even think about it. But talk us through that a little bit. So you start the Kickstarter, you don't know anything about it.
Right. So we'll just look at it. I got two businesses I spend a lot of time in. A little bit in Hollywood, but the two big ones are toys and comic books. We'll call it plastic or paper, right? So you get asked it every time at the grocery store. So I'm in those two businesses. Right now, currently, as we sit having this conversation, there are no new comic books being published. We are shut down 100% new comic books. We're done, right? Marvel.
And why is that? Because there's no market. People don't have the money to buy them?
No, the distributor shut down.
And there's only one, right? There's only one.
No way to distribute our book. So we can't get, there's fans and there's us making them. There's no way to distribute them to them right now. The distribution got shut down. So Marvel, not just my company, but Marvel and DC, there's no Batman and Spider-Man books being published right now. So, okay, there's one of my businesses just got shut down. The other one is now toys. Luckily, there's still some stores that are open, but I was already thinking about doing a crowdfunding. Let's not Kickstarter, it's called crowdfunding because there's multiple websites. Why? Because to your point, I've never done one, and I wanted to collect data to see if there was any relevancy, to see if it meant anything to a company that does the business that I do at the size and the scope that we do. Maybe it's a good experiment, maybe it's a bad, but we won't know till we experiment. It's the raising the hand, let's try it. What's the worst that happened? It doesn't work. So, and when the pandemic came, people, even in my own office, were trying to talk me out of it, saying, why don't we wait till it's over? And there was an easy answer for me, because everybody may be depressed and have no money when it's over. So to me, I think we should go now, right? When we're all delusional that we're actually going to all get through this. So let's go now. And so we put it out there. It was one figure, Spawn. It was a remastering of the very first toy I ever did way back in '94, just to play a little bit of retro chic, a throwback uniform, whatever you want to call it. And we put it out. I had a goal of 100,000. Thought maybe we'd get to 500,000 if we had a good time. The 100,000 was hit in 11 minutes, and we were within 30 hours, we were at 1 million, and eventually it tapped out at $3.5 million. Had the most backers ever for one of their toys, had the most money ever for an action figure. Like, wow, I wouldn't even work in this that hard, right? I'm going, shoot. Maybe I don't need Walmart and Target, right? Hopefully they're not listening, but actually,
we got a promo or blackmail.
Frank, here's the funny thing. The opposite has happened, because I got a call earlier today in which one of my top salespeople was talking to Target, and they're going, how come we can't get in on that Kickstarter? Why did Todd do it away from us? And so now all of a sudden, you know how this works. The moment you sort of take away something that they were sort of taking for granted, all of a sudden they want it. So now they're going, well, come on, Todd, what do we need to do to get some of your cool stuff in our store? And it's like, shoot, give me more space. And they're like, okay, coming in, let's talk about it. So I got their attention. And then when I'm dealing with, I've got a license for DC, so we're doing Superman, Batman. All of a sudden, the toy guys are all going, hey, can you do that thing for Batman that you did for Spawn? Like, oh my God. The answer is, of course, give me back, of course I can. And now maybe I'm going to go talk to Marvel now and go, give me Spider-Man. Let me do a Todd McFarlane Spider-Man figure, kind of cool. Make it look like my own artwork by the guy who actually did the artwork, and let me put it out there on a crowdfunding. We'll crush it. What are you talking about? We'll crush it. So.
What are those things on the crowdfunding where you get to tiers and you can add stuff to it? And I heard you talking about it before in an interview where you actually try to get people to add more. You started giving free stuff away because you were so far over and just giving back to the fans.
So here's how it works. I learned this on the fly. They call them stretch goals, right? So it's like if you're at 100,000, you go, hey, if we get to 130,000, I'll give you this. So you're basically trying to squeeze people to either change and give you more or go to higher spending plateaus. And get people to do it. And then when you get to 130, you go, oh yeah. But if you go to 150, guess what I'll give you? So you're always getting them to squeeze. I did the opposite, and it was an interesting result that we'd hit the number. I go, oh my God, I got to 1 million. I'm going to give you stuff. And they're going, Todd, that's not how it works. You're supposed to go to like 1.2 million, and you're supposed to make us give you more money. Then you give it to us. And then I went, oh, no, that's okay. I got plenty. You guys have been kind to me. I'm giving it to you. And they're like, no. And so then when I got to 1.2, I gave them some more free stuff. And they go, well, what do we got to get to? What's the number? No, you already got there. You already got there. I'm just saying because you already got there, I'm ringing the bell saying it's good. You get it for free. It took, I think, almost all the way up to 2 million before they understood that it's like, you give me no money and I will give you free stuff. Or I guess you give me more money and you're still getting the same free stuff. I don't know. This is so.
You planted the ore on them, man.
Oh my God! It took probably 15 days out of that 30-day campaign before they went. So let me get this straight, Todd. You're saying that if we do nothing, we'll get something. Ding, 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 ding. That's what I've been saying for the last 15 days in the comments. Yes, I don't want any more of your money. I'm not that guy. I'll leave that to the Fortune 500 companies that need to maximize profits and need to milk this cow all the time. I live in a world in which I believe, from a business point of view, first off, number one, what would the 16-year-old Todd want? Because he didn't have much money, and what he wanted was a cheap price with a lot of quality. Or if you don't need the money, don't try and get the money, right? Because someday you might need it. So I've got lots of people in the comic book market and toy market that were squeezing their consumers and their fan base. And now the pandemic comes and they get shut down and all of a sudden they need money and now they're trying to squeeze it. And their fans are going, well, what are you even talking about? You've been doing it for the last 365 days. I don't have any more left. And I don't do that. And now all of a sudden I go, hey, I just got this one little thing. Is anybody going to take a bite of it? And it's like, boom, pennies from heaven, because they go, Todd doesn't milk the cow all the time. He moderates it, and I just sort of go when there's a need. When you're thirsty, drink. Otherwise, don't. You get bloated otherwise.
Do you think that's Canadian? A little bit of the Canadian in you? 'Cause I heard you talk about, I'd rather get $1 from 1 million people than $1 million over 5 people or something like that.
No. Wow, Frank, let's do easier math than that. 10 people at 100,000 gets you to 1 million. Or 1 million people at a box.
Well, it's only 200,000 each.
Right. I want 1 million people because I'd rather have 1 million people talking about what I'm doing than having 10 people. So it's just good. It's good for business to have more people know that you're out there doing it. And the easiest way to do that is to just give them a good price. Look at, I went up against Hasbro, Mattel at Walmart and Target. They had Marvel, they had DC, they had Star Wars, they had Transformers, they had G.I. Joe. They had it all. How do I survive? I don't have any of those brands, and I'm a punk. There's only one way. There's only one way. I give them more plastic. I give them better quality, and I price it cheaper. Done. And if you take those 3 things, and then all of a sudden you actually put a brand on it, woo! That's a home run. That's a home run. So. Like I can beat them. I can beat them at their game because they have to maximize their profits every 90 days. They have a fiduciary responsibility. I understand it because I'm a boss. I know how that works. But because of it, I know how they're going to act. And it doesn't allow them to do things that I can do that will make my product look better in the marketplace, so that a mom will walk by and say, hey, there's a Star Wars toy, or there's a big ass toy that's the same price, maybe even less, and it's a lot of plastic, and my kid's crying, and I got to buy him what we call a shut me up toy, because otherwise he's going to cry the whole day. So I'm going to buy him a shut me up toy. And it's like, I can either buy that little piece of plastic that looks like it's going to break, or I can buy that quality product right there. It looks like it's 4 times as much plastic. Never underestimate plastic, gentlemen. Think of it as chocolate. You can get this chocolate bar for $20, or you can get this chocolate bar for $20. If it was me, I'd take this chocolate bar every day. So I give them this chocolate bar. And so even if you don't have a brand name on it, people still understand 3 times as much plastic is still worth something, right? So they go, wow, Todd's toy for $20 and their toy for $20. Who cares if one's got a big brand name?
I can, it's funny because I think back to when I was a kid, I had Shogun Warriors.
Oh yeah.
And the Shogun Warriors, there were the little Shogun Warriors, and then there were big ones. The little ones were metal, and they were awesome, and they were pretty cool die-cast kind of figure. But the big plastic ones was that was what I really wanted, a big plastic toy with a belt that I couldn't read.
Right. So, I'm going to tell you, gentlemen, because you guys are sports people, I'm going to tell you how they cheat. I'm going to give you the great example of how they cheat. They were doing toys of hockey players, right? And this hurts because, again, man, that's a dagger in my heart when you start talking about hockey. And I don't know if you guys ever saw the starting lineups, but they had them with their shirts tucked in, right? And so I go, I understand Wayne Gretzky tucks one side in a little bit. But here's what we're going to do. And I used to give them heck. And the people from Hasbro Mattel go, I go, why don't you look at photo reference? Because again, I've won dozens of awards for my sports figures. And they go, how do you get it so accurate? It's easy. I use a fucking camera. You press a button, you get an image, and then you take your clay and you just make it so it looks like the picture. The question isn't how do I get it accurate? The question is, how did they get it wrong during the whole invention of the camera for 50 to 100 years? So, but again, you want to give me an award? I'll take an award. I'll take an award for being a genius because I used the camera. Cool. So I used to sit there with the people at Hasbro Mattel and they go, we look at photo reference, Todd. And I go, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this blank check. I'm going to put my name on it. I guarantee you there's a lot of money in this account. You show me one picture of a hockey player who tucks his jersey all the way around from today back to the dawn of man, one piece of reference, and you can have this check. And after 3 years, it got all ratty. I had to throw it away. So you know why they were tucking it in? It's easy. Because most hockey jerseys, at the bottom have 3 stripes, and each one of those is 3 pennies. So they were saving themselves 9 cents. Who cares that it didn't look like what the reality of the world was? And then they even made what I thought was crazy, that normally you put a sticker on there, right? So you've got Wayne Gretzky. No. That costs a penny. We figured out if you put a card in there, you can do it for 1/2 cent. Okay, save yourself 1/2 cent. But the problem was that the photo of the card showed all the things that you were getting wrong. Like, what are you talking about? He's got a captain's. Does he have a captaincy? No. Does he got the stripe on it? No. Does he have the number? No. Does he have 4 colors on his glove? No. Why would you put a checklist to say, here's how much we're cheating you? I thought it was a bizarre decision, but because we saved a 1/2 penny. So we don't care if we're embarrassing ourselves at the same time. So that's it. So I put the C on the chest and I put the stripes on the uniform, and all of a sudden I'm some miracle worker. I got to tell you, let me tell you, if you want to look smart, hang around dumb people all day, right? You just look like a genius. I've been hanging around pockets of people, industries that have been acting dumb. I act average. They think I'm Einstein. It's good for business.
And you know what's funny? Like you said, when you're 14 years old, you stop wanting to play with this stuff. And I think it's because your powers of perception start to realize this is just mass-produced plastic. Everybody's the same. They just put a different number on a few of these guys. And you start getting kind of pissed off that this $3 thing it's the same Gretzky as it is Mark Messier. They just have different color paint. And when you came along and all of the things were accurate, the Larry Fitzgerald one stands out so much because his legs are the same. You basically rebuilt his body in a cast, which is unreal. And yeah, you don't feel like you're getting ripped off. That's the key.
It was worse than that. It didn't matter that they used the same body. They put it in positions they didn't do. Let me tell you right now, for a fact, because this is what their toy looks like, for a fact, Derek Jeter has never done this. That's not how it moves. I can tell they're not athletes. They don't know how the body, I don't even think they know what the word torque means, right? So it's like, come on. So what they would do, and I came across it at one point because sometimes we would use a scanner, and I use a lot of posing for it, and I go, I'm not big enough. So we ended up getting somebody to come and do some posing for us, and we got some Australian guy, not the Aussies because they're Commonwealth, and we got a friendship there. But this guy was a just beautiful body, handsome young man, and then he said the words that I knew was going to horrify me that day. I've never played sports. And I went, oh my God. And so I needed to get him into like pose because he had this great body and he couldn't do it. And it was essentially like our 7-year-olds going to school on picture day, giving you that bad smile, you know, that, that terrible smile, right? And again, for everybody, the answer to a fake smile is you get the cheeks up. Don't worry about the mouth. Cheeks go up, the mouth goes with it. Don't worry about it. There's a way to do an insincere, sincere smile too. So I had this guy sitting there and he was trying to act like an athlete, but he wasn't an athlete. And after that, whenever I needed a big body, I just went and got a college player. And I went, hey, you know how the body moves, right? You know how this works.
It's like on a sitcom when they would play basketball and you could tell that they'd never, like in sports movies, it's so obvious that people have never played. But that's what made Urkel so great on Family Matters is he went on that weird small basketball court, but he could actually play a little bit. And people are like, wow, Jaleel White's an amazing athlete. No, he's just a normal human being that's played a little bit of sports
right.
As opposed to somebody who's been maybe in the theater in their entire life. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not that there's anything wrong with it. But there's one of those things where you go, you don't know what you're doing. The way you're throwing is you're stepping with the wrong foot and throwing. You watch that in sitcoms as a kid who grew up playing sports. You just were annoyed by it. And that's exactly what you're talking about there.
Well, look, I assume that all doctors, when they watch medical shows, are going, that's not right, that's not right. Looks good to us, the layman. So for any of us that have the knowledge of the trick, and again, if you're an athlete or you've played it or you've seen it, you know what the motion of the body is, right? So of course, in almost every movie, the moment they move, I go, that's ridiculous. Like, that's ridiculous, right? That's not how you throw a baseball 89 miles an hour. Like, what are you talking about? But everybody else goes, oh my God, Kevin Costner looks good on screen. I'm like, shoot. I can't watch. So unfortunately, when you've been on the other side and you know how it works, when the people don't do it right, and they look at, I'm a big nerd. I collect stuff. I could not collect those toys. I was not going to buy a fake facsimile of somebody that was Ken Griffey Jr. for 2 reasons. 1, he's got his name on his back, and 2, you painted him brown. I'm not going for that ride because I've got my Sports Illustrated, my poster sitting on the wall, and that's what he looks like. And when is somebody going to make that? So when I did it, I was just doing what I know a million other people wish they could have done because they all had the same ideas as me. I wasn't unique. I just happened to basically go and do it. And then all of a sudden the legion of people went, yeah, this is what I've been talking about. It actually looks like them. Go. But I even had people, like I would send photographers to the NBA and get them to actually shoot their tattoos to make sure I got the tattoos right. And there's nothing worse, let me tell you, nothing worse than when you think you got it right and you made that all-star and you got a boatload, literally a boatload coming from China to America, and then the dude gets a new tattoo.
Oh.
And now you're not current.
That's amazing.
Hey, on another subject that one of my favorite music videos is Freak on a Leash by Korn, which I found out today you directed. So what was it like to direct music videos, and how did that how is that different than doing movies, and why have you not done more of those?
Yeah, I should, right? So here's how it worked. Let's go real quick. I said, I leave Marvel, we start Image, I create Spawn goes on, hits the top of the charts, and then I get a bunch of offers. One of the offers I got was to go and do some animation at HBO. I make the deal with HBO saying, hey, here's the deal. I'll give you Spawn, but I basically get to oversee the project. By the way, I've never done any animation ever. They said yes. I always like it when they foolishly say yes.
But that's you. That's you.
I tell every one of my employees every day, ask for a raise. The worst that happens, I say, no, you're getting paid the same amount. There's no downside to asking. Like, this is the piece that's like, you're in the same place if they say no, right? So they said yes, though, so you got elevated. We ended up winning a couple Emmys on there. And during one of those seasons, I don't know when it was, I get a phone call from Eddie Vedder, like out of the blue, not like I knew him. And he goes, Todd, Eddie. And I'm like, hey, Eddie. And it's like, record labels sort of bugging us. They want us to do a music video. Now, this is when everybody's doing a music video. They don't want to. Pearl Jam doesn't want to do a music video. But the record label saying we got to do one, haven't done one forever, so we got to do one. But I was just watching that Spawn animation, and I now know how we can do it. Let's animate it so we don't have to be in it, which is even cooler that they don't even want to be in their own video, right? So usually you got everybody and they're all arguing about how much camera time you get. These guys are going, how do we do a music video and not star in it? So I just thought that was pretty cool on their behalf. We go put out that one was called Do the Evolution. It gets nominated for a Grammy. We lose to Madonna. She had some big song that year. I'm like, oh, darn it. But I went, wow, you just do something. You get nominated for a Grammy. Then somebody saw the Do the Evolution, and then they went, hey, you want to do it? Korn, which was the band we're talking about on Frequent Release, they had done some work on the Spawn movie, and they are part of the soundtrack. So I knew them a little bit. And they said, hey, Todd, we're doing another one. That one was actually the
We lost him.
Yeah.
I was waiting to see if you guys could still hear.
Yeah, no, but that's the greatest promo right there.
Yeah.
Screenshot.
Yep.
Let's see if we can get him back.
There he is.
There he is.
Oh,
he's in a new room.
Whoa.
What just happened? You did time warp?
I'm getting closer to the router. I might have done it because either that or I was trying to rickroll you. So
wait a second. You could do this on a computer sitting at your desk, or you could hold the phone in the middle of your house.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit closer to my router there. But anyways, we do the Korn video and it goes. We won a Grammy for it, and that's another one of those ones. I can't read a lick of music. Never played an instrument. I've got a Grammy, right? So these are these things that I try to tell kids. It's like you never know where the path is going to go until you basically sort of attempt it. So how do you win a Grammy and know nothing about music? You just direct, produce it, package it. It's not like you just figure out the back door. I'm a complete backdoor guy. I just know how to get there, even if I can't, right? I was for a while, for 10, 15 years, I was a minority owner of the Edmonton Oilers, and we came within one win of winning the Stanley Cup against the Hurricanes. Because we were the owner, I would have got a ring. I mean, and for other than owning the Grey Cup, I could have had a Stanley Cup ring, and I can't skate. Oh my gosh, that is the complete backdoor. That's the best backdoor you can have. So I don't care how we get there. I'm not proud. So
would you have gone to your high school reunion if you'd have won that Stanley Cup? Because I can't imagine having a Stanley Cup ring at your high school reunion if that wouldn't be the greatest thing you could bring back to Calgary.
It gets better than that, gentlemen. If you win the Stanley Cup, you get to have the Stanley Cup for one day. It goes around. Yep. They rotate it. So I would have duct taped that thing to the top of my Volvo And I would have been sitting there with the big LED lights going around, and I would have gone up and down all the streets of Calgary. And I would have been like, what are you talking? I would have been a hero. I would have been a hero that day. Had them flashing the bling. The bling would have been secondary. I would have had the Volvo with the Stanley Cup. Come on, guys. Those are the moments. I was so close. Those are the moments. You can get hit by a bus the next day and go, I have had a full life, right? So
you could do that, or you could have a Spawn figure in the Stanley Cup, and then that's your next baseball. I want to backtrack for a second. I got to bring the Fireside guys in a little bit. Are you good on time? You all right?
I'm great on time.
Okay. The Kickstarter, does that do anything for you? Because that's Spawn. Does that do anything for you in Hollywood? Do they go, oh my God, people really do love Spawn? Does that help you with the Spawn movie?
Yeah, it does. It does incrementally, right? So last year when, Spawn went to 301 and we got the Guinness Book World Record, I make sure my agents got that information, right? Why? Because they're not then going to be doing something of a character that used to be popular, right? He's winning Guinness Book World Record. Issue 300 that came out obviously the month before, 301, was the second highest order comic book in all of comic books in 2019. The second highest. The only one that beat it was Batman Detective 1000, right? Issue 1000. Spawn was number 2, and then everybody else. And then in the top 11, I wish it was the top 10, but in the top 11, there's only one title that was named twice in terms of sales, and it was Spawn. Spawn 300 at number 2, and Spawn 301. There wasn't even in the top 11, there wasn't even one Spider-Man. There wasn't one Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, or a Superman comic book. And I had 2. So, and Marvel and DC own like 95 of the top 100 slots. So even if you're $1 billion company and you want to go and grab something, Disney's not going to give you any of their Marvel stuff, and Warner Brothers is not going to give you any of their DC stuff. So you're picking off the top 5, and that's like, The Walking Dead. My partner at Image had created that. And then things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles are already taken. The only thing you can get your hands on is Spawn. And after that, you got to go to like number 144, right? So I don't get it. I don't get why you guys aren't doing this thing. But luckily, they're starting to wake up to it. We're negotiating to grab one more giant player, and to show you sort of the same resolve that I had. I walked in and I go, I write, produce, and direct this movie. Otherwise, you never get the rights. And they went, okay, let me see the script, right? So now we're sitting there. I couldn't quite get them off their chair on the script. So, but I still go. I still have 2 non-negotiables. I direct it, and it's R-rated. And then I go, I'm gonna go attach people to it. First person I got was Jason Blum from Blumhouse. They've done like Get Out and Insidious and The Purge, and they just come out with Invisible Man, and they've done all those sort of cool, creepy movies. And so people went, oh my God, he does want to do a non-superhero movie, which I said, I want to do a creep movie. I don't want to do a superhero movie because I don't have enough of a budget that we're going to be able to do all the special effects. And then I go, now it's time to go get a star. And Jason was like, oh, you know what? It's going to be low budget. You probably don't put your bar too high. And I went, hey, I remember meeting Jamie Foxx years ago. I'm going back to Jamie because he said he wanted to do Spawn. I got Jamie in 2 seconds. Jamie jumped on board. He still phones me twice a week saying, when are we going to go? And then it was like, okay, you got your A guy. Like, that's enough talk. Like, a first-time director, don't get greedy. And then I went, no, I think I'd take one more shot. I think I'd take one more 3-pointer. We ended up getting Jeremy Renner, the guy who plays Hawkeye in the Avengers. But to me, he had done some other movies, The Hurt Locker and Wind River and Kill the Messenger, that were way more important. So now I've got that. And now we're negotiating literally this week with another giant, like this will be a giant headline, right? If I can get this fish up on the deck, this will be a giant headline. And then the studios will come because they're going to look at what it is that I've surrounded myself with. And they'll go, it's not that we want Todd. we want Spawn, but we'll put up with Todd because he's putting this all-star team around him. And if you basically put nothing but good people around you, you get great results. Look at Bradley Cooper directed A Star is Born. Take a look at that movie and tell me that looks like a first-time director, because he was smart enough to put smart people around him. So it looks like a real movie by a vet. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. So we'll get there. I'm just way too dogged not to get there. We're going to get there.
And Joker, you think helped you too by that being a serious?
Oh, yeah, because for 3 years I've been saying dark R-rated serious movie, and they're like, yes, little boy, we know what to do. We do billion-dollar superhero movies, and obviously, if I was doing the Avengers and Justice League, I'd be protecting that too. But then I remember I was at New York Comic Con, and I said, everybody make sure that you go to see the Joker, because this thing makes $200 million globally. Like, all of a sudden, Hollywood's very good at copycatting, and they're going to want then serious dark stuff. And that thing made over $1 billion. $1 billion. It broke the record for the most money by a R-rated movie. I don't care whether it was superhero or not. R-rated period in the history of the industry. It beat the record by 33%. And so it was like, go. And now all of a sudden they're like, hey, you know what? Maybe we can do serious, dark, R-rated comic book stuff like the Joker. Ding, 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 ding. And oh, by the way, that thing that was like #1 for a couple months last year, and the only book that was 2 in the top 11, I'm holding it in my hand. Who wants it? Who wants it, right?
Are you dead set on film, theatrical release, or you don't care? Because, I mean, it's weird because streaming seems to be all these big-time stars are streaming now, and you can do more, and you can artistically do what you want to a lot more. It's almost the bargain, especially now with COVID and everything. The theaters are going to struggle for a while. Yeah. You can't even go there. But streaming, you know, we're talking to Harlan Coben, and he's releasing. I think Spawn's a little different. That's your baby. You've already seen it done a few different ways. I heard you talking about Eddie Brock's not supposed to be a tiny little guy, or Venom's not supposed to be a guy. He's not Eddie Brock. He's this huge guy. And I'm watching, Spider-Man 3, and that's not right at all. But you can do it your way. And it might be even easier to go streaming, but you're not. Or you could go for
here's and the answer is yes, because again, you never want to get married to your position, because the public will tell you what direction they're going, right? And now with the pandemic, we don't know what the new landscape's going to look like. Something's going to have to change a little bit in the model, because a lot of the offers from the streamers, the Netflix and those guys, the disruptors, is they want to own everything. So what they do is that they would say, Todd, here's a chunk of money, and it's final. Is that enough money for you to basically let go of your baby? Period. Right? So they just buy you out. Where if you go into the theaters, and depending what kind of deal you can get, and you've read about these ones, you get a bit of a back end deal. If it goes to the moon, then you go for a little bit of a ride to the moon too. So I'm not quite there yet to say, oh, unless I find that, because the world shifts and there's no other choice. My guess is that everybody's not going to take that deal, so they're going to have to shift the deals. So then the deals will become a little more like the theatrical deals, and then you'll see people going, well, between the two, I can do just as good on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, and so maybe those deals get me.
Well, there might even be a situation where theatrical ties into streaming even more, and you get best of both worlds.
Okay, I've been saying for years, I don't get why Disney doesn't say new Star Wars movie, hit a button on your computer, $1. I think they would open up to $1 billion that next day. Like they keep getting excited about $200 million openings. You would open up to $1 billion, and the next day, half those people would give you another $1 to watch it a second time. So you'd be up to $1.5 billion. There's only been, you can almost count on fingers the number of movies that have made $1.5 billion. You get there in 48 hours. Like, what are you talking about? But what if you charge $2? I still think what are you talking about? You still get there. Instead, they're going, no, let's charge $19.99. No, come on. This is what I was saying before. No, you want 1 million people at a buck. Give it to them for $4 or $5, like, and you'll get half the population on this planet will basically download it. Come on, come on.
Well, look at how people buy airline tickets, or used to. People look for $1 cheaper. Like anything you can, a coupon, anything people can do to feel like they're getting a deal. Suddenly, it's a whole different ball game for people. I never even thought that way till I'd heard you talk about it in an interview, and I'm like, geez, and I don't want to, I'm using the term buy loyalty, but you gain people's loyalty by giving them something, by giving them a deal. You were talking about on another interview, the Kickstarter, you keep throwing these things in, you're like, $85. This is, plus then that's not even the figure that I promised you from the beginning. It's $85 worth for $40. And people in the end go, oh my God, Todd, this is amazing.
Yeah. So here's what businesses will do, because they have to maximize profits every 90 days. Sometimes they do what I call the brown banana business model. And the brown banana model goes something like this, because I've seen it even in the comic books and toys. They go, oh my gosh, nobody's buying our toys. We're making less money. They're $12.99. Nobody, what we got to do? Oh, they're buying half. So we're going to have to get the money back. So what do we got to do? Raise the price to $15.99. So first off, the people that stayed, the half that stayed, which is the loyal half, your answer to them, your thank you to them is you now have to pay $3 more, right? And oh, by the way, the reason that half of them left was because they thought your quality maybe wasn't quite as good. And so your way of selling them an inferior quality product is to raise the price. This is the brown banana. Oh, they won't buy the yellow bananas at $1 a pound. But now that they're starting to rot and turn brown, let's raise the price to $1.50, right? Because if they weren't buying the bananas when they're yellow, sure, my gosh, we got to get the money back while they're rotting. It's ridiculous. And eventually the fans know that you're taking advantage of them. They know, the consumer knows when they're going, I'm not getting my value. I'm not getting my value. I'll go someplace else that will give me my value, right?
This ties in with the crowdfunding, the whole thing. What do you, when you press that button or whenever it goes up, and in the 11 minutes, what do you think? Do you get to see increments coming in real time?
Yeah,
or I've never done it before. And
me neither. It's like going to Vegas and you pull the slot machine and you hit, and it just goes. And I was sitting there going, oh my God, I even got a video. I'll go, oh my God, it's up to 11,000. I was happy at 11. I'm going, woo, 11,000. And then my wife called me. I went downstairs. And then by the time I came up, 121,000. I went, what? We've already hit our goal? Like, whoa. And it's just going, ding, ding, ding. And then it sort of goes into a lull in the middle. And then there's a lot of procrastinators or people who say, I'm going to wait to see how many freebies they tack on to see whether I want to buy this. So I had a whole list of all the freebies. And at the end, it did the same thing at the end that it does at the beginning. It's like you're sitting there going, wow, it's like we just put it up today. So it went, I think I had my best day was the last day of the entire campaign was the last day. Yep.
Do you want to go into a crowdfunding deal with us? And between the two of us, between you and our podcast, I'm sure we could get like $3 million.
Here's the thing that surprised me. The thing that was the most popular was the highest price thing. I cringed at the high price. It was I think $160, right? So the low end was 40, the high end was 160, but you got 3 figures and an autograph. So okay, it was basically 40 times 3 plus the autograph. Bam, that was the one that they all wanted. And I'm like, wow. At a time when people were getting let off or furloughed or whatever, like they're going for the big mark. And then they were complaining that they couldn't buy multiples. So I put it in a couple other levels so they could buy multiples, which is weird that Kickstarter doesn't have a way you can buy more than one. And so I did one where it's like you could buy the 160 twice. That became of all the new add-ons, that was the most popular of the add-ons because I went to 320. Like so yeah, it's weird to me because I would never do it, but I'm like, oh, okay, cool. God bless you guys. And that's coming from an atheist. Hey, I'm gonna let you go with one. I'm gonna let you go with one story and why I got such a good bladder. My dad said, son, I know you're into comic books. The greatest gift my mom and dad ever gave me when I said I wanted to draw, they gave me a drawing table. They don't know how much that mattered. I used that table literally up until a few years ago. I drew every page of my life on that table.
Show it to me. It's got to be in that house.
Yeah. Well, but instead of a parent saying, hey, you should become an accountant, like, why you want to be an artist? You know, it's like saying I want to be a ball player and they bought me a glove or something, right? I mean, it was the best gift they could have given me, and they didn't know how meaningful it was. But anyways, my dad says, hey, there's this thing called San Diego Con. It was still a fraction and wasn't even at the convention center. But he goes, I'll drive you down to San Diego from Canada. Like, what are you talking about? So I go, okay. And every night I'd get woken up with my dad. I was sharing the room, and he'd get up and he'd like, tick, 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 and he'd go and he'd flush the toilet and he'd come back to bed. I'd go back to sleep. 2 hours later, tick, 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 tick. I go, what are you doing? Oh, I just got to go to the bathroom. Third time, it's like 5 a.m. He's sitting at the edge of the bed. I guess he'd pissed. I slept through it. He's eating his nacho chips. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing in his Speedo eating nacho chips at the edge of the bed, waking me up for the third time? And I vowed on that day that I would never, I will train, I will do Kegel exercises, I'll do anything I have to never do it. And then I was out camping with guys like you, and I was telling them this story, and all of them were like, yeah, so what's the point of the story, Todd? And I went, oh, you guys too? Up in the middle of the night? And that was it. And I vowed, and now I can go like 2 days. I like, forget getting up in the middle of the night. I can go 2 days because I've made a pact in my life that I will not wake up and eat taco chips at 5 a.m. because I can't go back to sleep ever and keep my son awake like my dad did. Loved them to death, still love them. But it was a horror story. So that's it. So there are just moments that sometimes your parents have like these moments on you that are actually valuable. So.
He's the chief
David Blaine holding his bladder. He's like he'll be out. You should be in the middle of Manhattan in a glass thing, and you're holding your bladder. People are drinking by you. They're spraying, and you're like, like Spawn. You're looking at him. I love this.
But people are watching and going, "Oh my gosh, Todd! Oh my gosh, Todd!"
A couple of months ago, I was in Florida. I was doing a signing for CGC. This is a company that grades books. You know, you guys ever seen the books where they grade it and they give a thing on it? And I told them, hey, I don't go to the bathroom. I don't eat, whatever else. And because they had so many books, I had to put in we're putting in long days. I was getting there at 7, starting to sign at 7 a.m. and signed all the way to midnight for 5 days in a row so I could get through the pile as fast as I could. And I never left the table. And they had to come in shifts, right? At first they thought it was a joke. And then they're like, oh my gosh, like, I got to go to the bathroom. And it's like, well, you better get somebody else in here, take your spot, because I'm not stopping, right? And then they figured it out that they had to have shifts of people for potty breaks and for eating and for drinking. And I just went like 17 hours nonstop. And they're like, it doesn't make any sense, Todd. It doesn't make any sense. But anyways.
I have the ultimate show. When we can get back in the studio, I'm going to make Todd come over here and we can be around together. And Lovitz and Todd McFarlane together would be the greatest show of all time. John Lovitz was fantastic with us too, but it was crazy because Lovitz was different because Lovitz, we kept going, okay, you probably have to go, right, John? No, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Jealous?
Yes. Look at guys, look at it. I'm going to give you the secret. I'm going to give you guys all the secret. This is easy stuff, gentlemen. Nothing goes in, nothing comes out. It's that simple. If you don't eat or drink, you don't have to do anything else because nothing's coming out. This is easy math.
In moderation, Todd. You eventually, people listening, have to eat and drink. Don't take it in my...
Well, once you're done the convention or signing your book, once you're done the goal, right? Once you're done playing your 9 innings of baseball, then you can go ahead and take a shower. You're playing baseball right now. Forget the shower. Forget whatever it is your personal needs are right now. You're playing baseball for the next 3 hours. Go. So to me, it's just a competitive thing for me. That's okay. You guys don't have to.
Competitive pee holder.
Competitive urinator.
It's unbelievable.
I've tried that before.
Yeah. I lose every time. The two things that would leave with this, the two things that have been the greatest was for me with Todd. It was him spending so much time with my daughter. I see him do that with so many people. whenever I text him about something, it's always about how much he likes Juliet more than me. That's always a big thing. And the greatest text I ever got was, Juliet has to be careful. Who am I going to give my company to when I die? That was the great. I'm holding on to that text forever. And you look at the look at his face. I did that. Oh my God, Todd, why did I do that?
Look at, just so you guys know, first time I meet Frank.
He doesn't want me to pee.
You're never going to.
First time I meet Frank, he's with Juliet and his lovely wife. But Juliet's there. She's this lovely young lady, that's an aspiring artist. She's got her book there, right? But I've been at it long enough that you start to sort of read the signals. And so as she was showing me her drawings, to me, they were metaphors for, oh my God, save me from this guy who calls me his vet. and give me that look, you know, that look you've seen before that says, can you adopt me? Right? You know, it's very fleeting. I don't know if Frank even saw it, right? And then she walked away, even in her gait, it was like, please heed my message, right? As she's walking away. So she was giving me all
No, you misread it. She had to pee.
Oh. Well, I took out the adoption papers that week.
I'll let you, for knowing what I know about you, take her. It's good.
You know what's crazy? Through this entire podcast, Todd's gone to every room in his house. Not one of them had a toilet in it.
Yeah, I know.
There isn't a toilet.
He doesn't have a bathroom.
Frank, he might trade you a couple pages of Spider-Man for Juliet.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my God.
This has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Todd.
All right,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
Todd.
Thanks,
All right,
Todd.
gentlemen,
Thank you,
everybody
Todd.
be
That was
good.
You're the best. Oh, my
Amazing.
gosh. This was
Enjoy,
great.
enjoy it,
so good.
Thank you. I'll send you all 6 parts.
right? Go make your bladder gladder.
Go make your bladder.
All right. Thank you.
There it is. Thanks,
Appreciate
boys.
it, Todd.
All right, be good.
Take care,
Okay.
Todd.
See you, boys.
All right, guys.